I was the last web head to be hired, and I did a bunch of Spider. I did Web of Spider-Man for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man was my guy. That was a real bucket list thing. It was very exciting to get to do Spider-Man. But I did so much Spider-Man, I never want to touch Spider-Man again. It was too much Spider-Man. I was like, enough of the Spider-Man.
This
No
is because and help me remember, because I think I own these issues. You did a story that had like, you kind of like reinvented the Chameleon a little bit.
That was me. That was my.
Oh.
That's the first one I pitched. It ended up being not being the first one I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
It still ended up being the first one that got published. And Barry Kitson did the art on that. He's a lovely dude.
Oh yeah, but I just remember that, and I was just like, oh god. Like again, like it was Leo and Carrie in the story. You find that the Chameleon, who's the Spider-Man villain who can change his face and whatnot, he kidnaps his victims, and he basically holds them hostage, and he takes like a day in their life where he's them and he's setting things in motion, and then later on he like correct me, Fred, if I'm wrong, he dissolves his victims in acid so there's no trace, and then he's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So you would slightly out of order. He dissolves them in acid and then takes over their lives because they no longer exist.
Right.
And yeah. So what I was a fan of the pocket books reprints. I'm a 70s kid. I know I'm probably older than most people on this call. And so my parents got me the 70s pocket book reprints of the original Steve Ditko run of Spider-Man. And Chameleon first appears in Amazing Spider-Man #1.
Right.
And what I loved about it was he has no powers in Spider-Man #1. He's just some guy who's a master disguise. And I thought what would be cool would be, can we get a guy with no powers? And ultimately in the 80s and 90s, they gave him, he took some super soldier serum or whatever, and he could change shit, which is boring to me. What's much more interesting is he kidnaps people, sprays latex on their faces to kill them, and now he has a mask of their faces. He pulls the face off the corpse, dissolves the corpse in acid, and then goes out and it becomes that person.
Right.
And wants to become a better person than that person was. And so he does that to Peter Parker. Obviously, Peter Parker has done many comics since 2009, so we know Chameleon did not kill him. But how that happens is a fun story.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing is, because you did because kind of in the vein of Hercules, you did the first issue of they did like a Deadpool 900 series, and then they did the issues backward.
They did the Deadpool team up, yeah.
Yeah, and then you had Deadpool teaming up with Hercules, right?
Right. That was at Axel Alonso's request. That was the editor of the book.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, because I just remember thinking, I was like, wow, this is Wade, and again, and that was the first one after issue 900. So, like again, like you said, was that another one of your? I hate to say it, your suicide missions? Or like he can't do it. Like, no, I got it. Give me a second.
No, it's a great question. I think that it was more like, so I mean, Marvel's kind of a snake pit of all these different like editors fighting for turf. And a lot of it was because of the guy who at the time was in charge was this guy Ike Perlmutter, who, as you may know, is a big Trumper and was going to be Trump's Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and is a real piece of shit. Sorry, can I say that on the?
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, so the problem is when you have a piece of shit as the head of your organization, the shit kind of trickles down like water to everybody. So it was a real toxic workplace. And at the time, I don't know, I haven't worked for Marvel since Axel was editor-in-chief. So I think he got moved out like 2018, something like that. So I haven't been there since. So I can't speak for how it was now. For how it is now. But at the time, it was a lot of like weird turf wars. And so I think that when people wanted to try something that was outside of the, accepted, parameters of success, they throw expendable guys like me at it. And
Right.
so I did keep getting sent on suicide missions, like do Marvel Zombies, but you can't have Spider-Man or Wolverine.
Right.
You do the Incredible Hulk book, but instead it stars Hercules. Oh, okay, that's sure. And so, I kept coming back. So they kept sending me out with crazier assignments. So I think that, I think your perception's totally right. I think that the Deadpool team up was something like that. But I mean, it's a team up book, so it was a different writer of book. So it was a fairly minor, risk compared to some of the other ones.
Absolutely.
But look, the bottom line is I from the time I was like 8 years old, I was a huge Marvel fan. So getting to write Spider-Man and everything else I did at Marvel was a huge gift, a huge opportunity. I would not have the career I would have now without Marvels. And some of my best friends I have now are people I met at Marvel. So the bottom line is, even if the institution is shitty,
right,
the institution is nothing but the people who make up it,
Right.
And usually with the big institution like Marvel, you have dozens and dozens of people, and some of them suck and some of them don't. And I was lucky enough to be with and work with a lot of people who didn't suck. And I was very lucky, in that regard. So
Excelsior!